Welcome to the Top Floor Podcast. I am your host, Darren Kanthal, and today we have Mr. Al Laws, the president and founder of Laws Whiskey House. Hello, Al.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be fun. As you said, I'm Al Laws. I'm the president founder of Laws Whiskey House and, head of everything, partner in everything, part of the village that we've built. So that's a pretty cool thing.
Awesome. All right, so let's talk about something current. I know it's not the right saying, but tap room is the word I was looking for just a minute ago.
Yeah.
You've expanded your footprint. How's it going? Is it open?
Oh my God. It's very close. We might get temporary CO this week. So this project has taken now 7 years. So this is what it's like to do business in the city of Denver. And then to try to build something during a period of, we call it chaos and COVID and everything else, supply chains and everything. It was challenging, but the building itself is done. It's gorgeous. We loaded furniture into it last Friday. Now we just need the approval of the powers that be to allow us to have the public in.
Awesome.
But it's gorgeous. It's a great building, great add-on into what we do at Laws. So we've been, for a very long time, and by purpose, we've been more of a wholesale manufacturer. So we've been about the distillation and production of the whiskey and not about having a very elaborate consumer interaction at the distillery. This is a huge step forward for us in that this brings us and our brand, a lot more of a place to interact and to showcase what we do. So it's a long time coming, but when you come to see it, it's well worthwhile. It's, architecturally very cool, and it will do what it's supposed to for our brand. We got a very own whiskey church, place to come and, experience whiskey and all those spiritual things that go with it.
Love it. And just remind me and our listeners, what all is included in the expansion? What does it entail?
So it's a full new building attached to the distillery. It is about 4,000 square feet on 2 levels. It's got a cocktail bar on the second floor. Eventually, we'll add a roof deck, probably within 24 months. But given the experience so far of building this, I think we're going to wait and let our skin grow back after being skinned alive a number of times. It's attached to the distillery. So the interaction of going in and having a tour, we'll go through that, or brand education, and then you'll go into the distillery and see the same production type of tour that we've offered before, which will be enhanced a little bit, and then come back into a place where it's a little bit more comfortable to, again, talk about the brand, experience it a different way rather than a straight pour or, hey, here's the various things that we make. And we didn't even have ice before in our little bottle shop thing before. Now we have like a full-on cocktail bar, so you get to experience the whiskeys in, the next derivative, if you will, of what makes whiskey great.
Love it. Well, I have been to your distillery before we knew each other. I have a picture of a couple of the painted barrels in the congregation room where we got a little education on the history of the distillery. And it was a great tour, and myself and 3 friends, we all loved what we drank.
Perfect. I'm glad that's what we want you to have happen.
Love it.
Yeah, it's a great place. Like, it's a nice thing to add on to. Again, it's an elevation. So before we had, again, the bottle shop and that tour with some pews, and that was, I always call it something below brand standard. But yet the education and the information you got was aligned, if not above brand standard. So it was a weird trade-off. Now we're going to have the education and information paired with a great location that's at brand standard.
Cool. All right. So it's something I've been dying to ask you since we met. And I think I read on your website, or maybe you alluded to this when we were first introduced, but when you decided to start your distillery, it took 3 years for the whiskey to age, if I've said that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And for 3 years, you had a business that, as far as I understand, did not produce revenue. And I'm really curious, what'd you do in those 3 years?
Yeah, so whiskey is a different type of consumer product, and different. I think it's the highest evolved of all the spirits that are made for in Bev Elk. It takes a different timeline, and so when we set out on this, it was a 20-year journey, right? It wasn't 5 years, and we make some stuff, and then we have some advertising, and we sell some stuff. To us, it takes 20 years to establish a whiskey brand, so it was a different type of journey that we stepped out onto. So in those years, the idea was to lay down as much as we could using cash. So we invested a lot of cash in the front part. That was all mine and my wife's. So we didn't have to take outside investors. And so that 3 years, we had very few people work there, maybe 4 or 5. And our idea was to lay down as much whiskey and maybe some diversified types of whiskey in order to, when we got to the part where the whiskey told us it was ready, so that we had a substantial amount of inventory that allowed us to do things like bonded whiskeys or something, taking things to much older states, which we can do now all because of the time we spent in the front end. So we didn't sell anything for like 3.5 years. I think that was about what it was. So we just kept making it, and we had people would come and knock on the door, and like they see the silo. Well, what's going on here? Well, we're making whiskey. Well, what can we buy? Like, you can't buy anything. We don't have anything. We're not going to have it for a while. A lot of folks don't really understand that because they see brands come to market and like, well, they just started. I'm like, yeah, well, they bought whiskey from MGP in Indiana. Like, that is not what we do. We make grain to glass. We are highlighting Colorado terroir in that, and we are definitely sticking to our guns and being an authentic whiskey distillery, not just a brand.
So cool. I dig this. Question before I have another question. Are you and your wife in business together?
Yeah. She's involved in the company from the day one, whether she liked it or not. and she she remains, notwithstanding the last couple months of her health and stuff. But she's a critical part. I'll tell you, the last 6 weeks trying to get things done when she wasn't able to go in has been pretty challenging for the team. But yeah, she's like corporate secretary for the board, and as well as, she just has so much institutional memory in this that it's pretty hard not to operate without her in the mix of the village.
Yeah. All right. So let me share a little context and then a question. First piece of context, my girlfriend is also a coach, as am I. Long story short is we've decided to partner. And it's only been about, let's just say it's been 6 months.
Okay.
You're quite a bit further ahead of the curve than we are. And we also work with some other family-owned businesses. I am curious, what words of wisdom and lessons learned would you impart on others who are in business with their spouse?
Well, I try not to tell her what to do, because when I do, it doesn't turn out well. And she gets her back up, and then she doesn't do it at all. So there's more suggestions, and try to stay out of her lane and not be involved in the things that she's involved in. But at the same time, it's an important aspect that, our lives don't get a separation from that building 1.4 miles from here. I'm at home right now. This is where I have one of my offices. Everything gets brought home. So the hardest part about this is we don't get, whether people get in their jobs, to walk away from some of these things. It's always here. And we know the whole business from soup to nuts, and that isn't sometimes very fun either. But the main thing is to just keep the conversation going in it, and when needed, provide the support for the other person's challenges. We'll use that word term, and there are plenty of them. Right, this is a tough business. It takes a long time to get it rolling and getting the right people and all these sort of things, and it affects everybody, and it affects our home life quite a bit. And it used to affect our kids, but now they're not kids, so they get their separation now.
Yeah. So you had mentioned staying out of her lane. If you back up a little bit, how did you and she figure out whose lane was what?
Well, at the beginning, there's a lot of lanes that needed to be filled. and we didn't have any revenue. So it's like, hey, guess what you get to do? And there's some skill sets here that are really deep and of high quality. We'll put it that way. My wife has an MBA. She's an accounting designation. She can do stuff related to finance for sure. And from there, like, I'm an economist by training, so I have a master's degree in economics and financial economics and a CFA and a bunch of these other sort of things. So we're pretty good at that. So it's pretty easy to hand certain things off because professional skill sets there, and motivation certainly is there. So those are things that worked out pretty well. When you start to add in things like marketing and brand stuff where we don't have as much experience, and we've added people that do have that, and we've added real professional like CFO who worked with me for a long time, and then also, is great in his own right. And his addition to the village is just like having another family member in, and that's Peyton, our CFO, and so also works very well with Marianne. So that kind of triangle, if you will, of folks that have opinions and deeply respect the person's professionalism and their personal aspects make for a great foundation for Law's Whiskey House.
Words of wisdom, truly. Rachel and I are on the front end of our partnership and figuring out our lanes. And truth be known is I'm a little fiery, and my patience runs out often pretty quick. And unfortunately, she's sometimes in the line of fire, rightfully or unrightfully so. And that's a lot of our growth at the front end now. To your point too, figuring out the lane, but also me keeping myself in check, and her to some extent as well.
And there's an aspect of having a thick skin in this too, because you don't want things sugar coated, not from like Peyton or Marianne or I. And Peyton and I worked on Wall Street, so it's a little bit more type A and aggressive, and we're used to having arguments and being able to just walk away from it after. Hey, we said what we wanted to say. We each had points. Doesn't continue on from beyond this. It just comes down to being direct. It's harder to be direct with the broader village in that they don't have that experience, and I don't want to use the term, they're just more sensitive, right? So you have to be able to have direct conversations in our foundational group, and then be able to communicate those out to, in a nicer way. But at the same time, things have to get said, and people, really have to be able to let it roll off. And that's, can be harder with spouses and that, but I think the foundation of this all is a lot of love too, right? Between everybody. That's where we're trying to build a village, not a team. A village is something different than a team.
Yeah. First a comment, then let's talk about the village. You mentioned Wall Street. I am born and raised in New York. And it is interesting how the East Coast vibe of directness is also directly tied to aggression or arrogance. And yes, sometimes they're combined, but it's not always the case. And it's just interesting that being direct is seen as disrespectful or aggressive or something, when isn't clear as kind. Isn't that the whole saying?
I said I lived in New York for 7 years. Maybe when I came in, it was something to like monitor and absorb, but I adapted it pretty quickly, and it's more effective. So, and again, it's about sensitivities and not taking on, oh, that's personal. It's not that personal. And we're even in society today, like, too many things rile people, and it's so irrelevant. And what we're trying to do, let's look at what the goals are here. And no one's trying to hurt your feelings, but these things are important to have done, and we need to get beyond the personal part of this. And it's hard to do, really hard to do. Takes some, it's like mindfulness. It takes some mindfulness. So, but I think if people know that, and they know you're not coming from a place of meanness, and that it really just comes down to this. And some people sometimes people have a bad day. So you have to give them some space for that. And we let it roll off pretty easy here.
All right,
And
let's
not
segue
every day is
there.
nice.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said not every day is fun.
No, agreed.
So,
Agreed.
but like great respect for people's opinions and what they bring to the table is critical in this. You can't do it all. I don't want to do it all, and in fact, I want to do a lot less. But at the same time, the people that you have involved in this, you want to be able to trust them to do the right things, and also to elevate it, and to not just do the right thing today, but like make it better tomorrow. And that's the hardest thing about hiring and finding people. So is to get that. And a lot of people have that for a while, and then they need to go on to something else, and that's okay too. Like ultimately, anyone that comes to the village, and we want them to have a great experience and contribute, and then go on to whatever self-actualizes them later.
Yeah. I'm going to pick up on one thing you said, and I'm going to make a segue to the village. Let's see how I do. I don't want to lead us down a path that is incorrect or be too narrow. But one of the things you said a few times now is the word trust.
Yeah.
And just to talk about that for a moment is I've listened to a book recently, actually a portion of a book recently by Stephen Covey, or one of the Coveys, called The Speed of Trust.
Absolutely, yeah.
And one of the things I picked up on is he talked about trust being an element of the integrity of the person and the competence.
Yeah.
And so speaking at work, right, do I believe in your character and do I have trust you can do the job?
Yes. Those two things. We've used that book in training ourselves in management. Also, servant leadership is a big part of Law's Whiskey House. So, mow the grass in front of the next person makes that person successful. Everyone does that. We have, less turbulence, and we create better relationships. And there's respect. There's definitely respect in that. We didn't have that at the beginning, and we've had, I just do this. I'm the day guy. Oh, well, no, you do this because we're not just that. We're not siloed. We're a continuum. So, some people like that. Others don't. We use the term "we" a lot, which some people, again, adapt to. When someone's involved in laws and it's about I, they generally do not last very long, because I can't get through my day without relying on a lot of our villagers. It's just not possible. It's not like, oh, I'm making people, it's like literally not possible. This is such an interconnected, and we're small. So what's the term? Oh, we can wear lots of hats. I know that's like a corporate term. It's not really not that. It's really just sharing responsibility to make sure things get done and owning it. So integrity is definitely part of that. And we try to foster that. And you do that through, again, mutual trust and again, the type of conversations you have and building people up, right? That's really important to me. Even at Wall Street, it's like I want my teams to be able to do my job. That's not what you get in Wall Street. You get like, oh, I'm the most important and can't let anybody come in under me. And like, no, that's not how I approached it. And a lot of the folks that worked with me and on the teams that we were building went on to fantastic jobs, and I felt really proud of that.
You said a few moments ago, there's a reason why you call it a village and not a team.
Yeah.
Tell us more. Why is that important?
Well, a team, everyone has their quote unquote roles, and I'll diverge from that a little bit. So when we look at, this works better in production and operations than it does perhaps in sales. But we've tried to adapt it to have both the, go get it sales thing and then actually achieve stuff without going, oh, you didn't achieve it, pat in the back. Well, that's not really acceptable in sales. But in production, it's like, well, we treat it like a hockey team, right? So in hockey, Canadian originally, so this is like religion to me. But there's 4 lines and everyone has a role, and you might not be on the first line all the time, but what you say on the bench and how you contribute and if you're ready to contribute when you're called upon is really important. So in our production team, we don't have a master distiller. We don't have a master distiller because we don't believe in that as a concept. It's like, oh, well, this person knows it. It's not true. And the master distiller isn't running the equipment. So we don't want any zombies on our floor. And if you're running the equipment, you are the master distiller. So you have accountability, and not just to me, but to your teammates. We have a head distiller, a more senior person, and he tries to foster that as well. But everyone contributes. So there's no one around the table that just takes notes. It's like, hey, we're doing this. Be engaged. Want to hear what you're saying. You may only be doing this part of it, but you are a part of it. And then you expand from there into, the sales marketing side, and then even in admin. And then when you get to like bottling it. And so my favorite part is this. Sometimes you go, oh, then just throw it in bottle. I'm like, really? So you made this under very specific attributes you were looking for. And then you let it age for 4+ years. And then you're just going to bottle it? I'm like, no. Those folks are as important as anyone else on the team, making sure that there's nothing wrong with it before it goes out, that they're packaging it the right way, and keeping their eyes on the specifics. And when something doesn't seem right, speak up. And that's an important thing. So when you think about a village, you got the town hall, administration, you have fire and police, and people that live there, and you have all these people that all contribute to what is a town and a village, right? They're really important aspects of that. And everyone's, might have, depending on how you measure things, might have, well, I do more than this, or you do more of this, but ultimately we all do something. And by having that together and as part of like a culture where, again, you said it for respect, mutual respect, I guess is a better way to say that, and to say, well, and look at people that have value. Don't look at people about, oh, well, you're not as valuable as me, or no, everyone's valuable. And we want to keep that as part of the Laws whiskey culture, but also it affects the quality of the whiskey, right? Everyone cares. All those little things are checked off. Everyone's involved. Their level of engagement is very high. That makes for the best whiskey. It's not one person. Now, everyone tells you, oh, you, and I have to go to Boston tomorrow and to Dallas because they want me at this. I'm like, I'll go, but it'd be even more fun if you brought Sam, or if you brought, like, that'll be just as fine. Like, it's not like I'm going to bring anything different to this that couldn't be brought by my head blender or my head distiller, or even, our senior distillers. They would do a great job too. They're articulate. They know what they do. They like to talk about what they do and the soulfulness of whiskey. And could be any one of us do it. Like our brand, she's so awesome. Our brand manager, you have her do it. I'm like, if I go do something with her, I'm not even going to talk. Like, she does a way better job of it than I can do. So like all these things how would I say this? It makes me really proud.
Yeah.
All these folks that play into this, and you're like, totally trust them. They would do a great job. And that's probably not how a lot of companies feel about the folks that are in their village.
Yeah, I would say it is a newer school of leadership thought. I think we're on maybe not the absolute front end of this curve, but maybe like front-ish approaching the middle. And I'm with you. I've worked at organizations. I grew up in New York. I didn't work on Wall Street, but tangentially to it. And it was a bit more cutthroat. And yes, there was this talk of team, but do we really believe it or not? And there's a lot of ego, especially on Wall Street, but anywhere we go. And there's a lot of people, Al, that don't seem to be secure enough in who they are to allow other people to be part of their village. And they want to like strangle the thing because only I know how to do it. Yeah. But as you said earlier, is the whiskey house does not run unless you have all of these other folks that are supporting you, but also not being so siloed to say it's only, this is all I do. We share. Yeah. Something you said earlier. I appreciate all of what you said so far.
Yeah. Like they make me better and I make them better. And if they need something to help solve their problem and I can bring that to the table, I'm going to do that. And they do the same thing. So it's collective effort. It's not communism. It's really about teams. And it's all, like I said, all based in team sports, in particular for Lost Whiskey House because of where I grew up and what I played, and like hockey is a very important sport to me, best sport in the world, and it teaches you a lot. And we brought that, like a lot of our mantras are, there are no shortcuts. It's on our wall. And my favorite line from an article written about us years ago was that it was very Ayn Randish. And I'm like, nailed it. And I'm like, yes, that's a really good way to describe that. Other ones are like, every day is a tryout. And that's something that our folks truly believe in. And they like, hey, today I'm going to always try to make this team. And that means we get better. So it means you have to get better. So the best whiskey that we ever made is coming off the still right now. Because we always get better. We always raise the bar on ourselves. And we always continue to look at the details. Not going to phone anything in. Folks are engaged on the floor, and we're not going to try to make too much if we don't have the right personnel coverage. It's just like, this is, all these things matter. Let's not stress people out. Let's make sure we have their backs. Again, mow the grass in front of them and give them the tools that they need to be successful. The tools they need. This is not necessarily which ones they want, but the ones they need are always accessible. It's not like, no, you can't have that. If it's necessary, you're going to get it. If it's something that's like, well, probably don't need that. So, but everyone understands that. One of the most interesting things we had happen a few years ago, and we did some rebranding. Our labels weren't standing out, so we did some rebranding on that. And the marketing person came in. It's become a really great friend of ours, and he was shocked at how, when talking with and interviewing folks, how everyone had the same message and they talked the same way. They used the same vernacular. And I'm like, well, we don't waterboard them. So they either believe it or it becomes something natural to them because it's easy to believe. There are no locked doors. There are no, deep secrets, or everyone gets to tell the truth and to be upfront. And by making sure folks are in that position, I think that's a very rewarding village to work in.
You've put down so much, and again, I'm grasping at one thing. So quite frankly, if this is not an avenue you want to go down, just redirect us. And I'll give a little commentary, then I'll ask the question, which is, in my life, I was raised to speak up.
Yeah.
My mom is mouthy. She would argue for 3 cents at the supermarket if the sale price didn't come up on apple juice. I'm not saying that's good, bad, or indifferent. It's truth.
Yeah.
I share that commentary because what I find in life is that miscommunication is at the core of almost every problem, if not every problem. We either don't communicate clearly, or we don't hear clearly, or our mindset or our ego gets in the way and we interpret it in a way that is not necessarily the intent of the messenger, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The other piece of this commentary is, and I'll make it binary, is some people will speak up all day long, every day, without even being asked. Yeah. And on the flip side, you have people that are just, they won't, whether it's fear or whatever, right? Now, granted, there's a wide range in between. Here's my question to you. Because you talked about speaking up a few times now, at least once or twice, how do you create a culture? How have you created the culture where it is safe for people to speak up? Actually, let me just stop there. How have you created the culture where people feel safe to speak up?
Well, so we added things that over time that were necessary. So we have a great HR director. So we say, if you can't, what we want you to do is say something to your direct senior team member or something. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, go to HR to do that. And this is not a, hey, and now we're keeping tabs on things. It's a way to bridge what you described there is gap in communication, or let's do the other side of that, how it lands. Like understanding, right? So one of the things you introduced a few years ago, and it was like, we're not going to repeat this 10 times because we think you don't listen. We're going to add this level of what we call iterative communication. And it's because and we talk about it this way. It's like, hey, we're saying this over and over again in sometimes different ways and from different people, so that it builds. So maybe the first time it's said to you, you say 15% lands, right? And something that we're doing, and then we talk about it again. And, oh, now you have some mental architecture for that. Now it's 25, and then over 6 months or so, we'll all eventually get on the same page. Because we'll be over, say, 80%. That's just arbitrary number, but and then we'll all the greater understanding that comes from that didn't happen all at once. Required a number of different people saying it or interpretations, maybe. I don't know, like adding personal, like how it lands for people. Like we found, like sometimes like, oh, well, you get this. No, you get some of it. And by doing that and being open to that, and then so when you don't have this feeling where it's working and or something's wrong, and you can go to HR, we can really construct like maybe another version so that it helps. Again, I use the term land, so it lands as close as it possibly can for everybody, because everyone's a separate individual, right? That's how we talk about whiskey too. Like a single barrel is an individual, a batch is a community. So you can pick single barrels and that's really great. But what we're really interested in are batches of whiskey and that, they all come together. We put all those barrels into the tank. We let them sit for a couple of days, let them get to know each other. And then we start, cutting them down to proof strength or bottling strength. But those concepts still apply to the village. So they're all individuals, but we all absorb things differently, come from a different place, or we're at a different place when, the ideas come together. But if we use iterative communication, we get there, right? And sometimes we get some great input that allows that to improve dramatically. So if you understand how people absorb stuff or what's important to them or where they're at, you mentioned people that don't want to talk. Often, that's the HR thing of directing people there. And Callie probably spends a lot of her time as a mini psychologist to some degree, but it allows for the people that don't want to speak to go somewhere. Again, we'll use the parlance of the time, a safe space or whatever. I don't really like that term. I think it's just a place where people can feel comfortable. So it's the same kind of thing, but I just don't like the label. And then that can, again, broaden everyone's understanding of how things are landing and how do we improve it. So it's important aspect. Before, when they were coming to you or they're coming, there needed to be another channel where it wasn't a direct thing. So these things you talked about whether you want to be speaking out or whether you don't, we're going to absorb all of that, which is all very important in the collective of Law's Whiskey House Village.
And I'm beaming for you. I feel pride for you. I'm a former HR guy. I'm an executive coach. Right? All this discussion we're having here about safety, the village, speaking up, it's all so resonant for me as a human and also as a professional. And I've seen it firsthand where the companies that create the safety required to speak up are the ones that thrive. Because on the flip side is if I don't feel safe to speak up, I'm going to turn a blind eye. And it's almost undoubtable that at some time in the company's history, someone turning a blind eye is going to be the very thing that's going to knock it off its track.
Yeah, well, we don't want things to fester. And again, we've had a reduction in force earlier this year, that was necessary. That, every organization, as it grows, go through a growth period, you could say, wow, there could be some reduction or changing of certain roles. And then there's a point where we've had, which is disposable income is falling, interest rates are high, inflation was high, BevElc got hit, it's been still getting hit, but we had to reduce. But that wasn't, what was the term? Like, you're not getting rid of deadwood at that point. This is going into the quick. And that was really tough for us. We needed those people.
Yeah.
We just didn't have a role for them right now. And that was probably the hardest thing in our 13 years right there.
Yep.
because
I
invited
mean,
them into the village, had them here, and then you know these are just things that happen in the business. You can call it business, and you could say it that way, and that doesn't make it easier, or it sounds like it makes it easier, but it doesn't make it easier.
no,
Not when you built this.
no. I've been on the HR side of terminations, and that's not even remotely fun, let alone
Mm-hmm.
being involved in the terminations on something you've created. So I believe that you had a little different emphasis in that whole story.
Yeah, it's not good, and yeah, you do your best in communicating why most people understand, and then still leaves a bad taste in your mouth, or a dead spot in your heart, kind of thing.
Yeah. All right, Al, we're getting close to the end of our time. Any parting thoughts or anything we haven't spoken about that you'd like to?
No, I just think that small businesses always have challenges, and it's usually people, in that people is a big cost, and people bring things to the table, obviously, but it's just, when do you get to those critical points where you can I don't know, we don't know where that kickoff point is, where we have leverage in this, but it is great to have more diverse skill sets and types of people in your organization. And we look forward to being able to add them again in the next few years here, as we things stabilize and change direction. But I don't think we're changing the way we're going to market or doing our business. And with the addition of the new tasting room, that adds an element. Like we talked about, we did this before, and maybe we did really great at this, but our facility wasn't that great for that. Well, this is not just that. This is a whole new element of supporting Law's brand, but it's also our tiptoeing into hospitality, which we have not done. and I'm going to say we're not nervous about it. We've hired good people to do it, but I think we have another new learning curve to embrace, and again, be patient and figure out where we fall in all this in the city of Denver and what it means for the brand. So we're still learning, and I think that comes across in most times we have conversations with folks, is that we're pretty humble, and we keep learning every day, trying to make what we do better. And by doing that, the foundation of that is to build folks up and build people up. And this is still a very people focused business and relationship focused business. And I think we come into that in the right way. Our approach to that is the right way. You said at the beginning, doing business with people that you like, that they respect you, that you respect them, is very important to us. And told all our people, if you're having a bad time with a supplier of this, or if we're not being the right partner, we need to correct that. So we don't do business with people that don't aren't nice to us or don't respect us. And likewise, if we were doing that to others, we would expect them not to do business with us. So that's it. That's my thing. I said we're continue to evolve, but the basis on which what we've talked about today is the foundation of how we go about it. And I think I don't see any issue where we have to change that.
Well, I'm glad we got the chance to talk today. I know it's been several weeks, if not a few months, in the works behind the scenes. And thank you for what you shared today. Truly and sincerely. I really appreciate your initial focus on building that village, and now your current focus on maintaining it. Mutual trust at the core of this village, recognizing we have shared responsibilities. It's not just, that's not my job. Like, you can mow your neighbor's lawn. It's okay.
Yeah.
And, maintaining that level of courtesy throughout vendors, employees, did you say your wife's Mary Ann? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Right. The fact that you and your wife are still married and running a business. I mean, that's something to aspire towards. So thank you for everything you shared. It was really, really fun talking to you.
Well, likewise. Thank you for the time, and appreciate the interest. And anytime.
All right. Take care, everybody.